Female Amazon warriors have always been a popular subject in Hollywood, as seen in films such as Black Panther, to the 1973 movie War Goddess, and most recently, Woman King. These fierce women fighters were inspired by the real-life Agojie warriors of the Dahomey tribe in West Africa. However, factual information about this tribe is difficult to come across. Most of what is documented about them are from the perspective of European colonizers. The impact this all-woman military left on the European colonizers in the early 1800s is clear because of the many journals written about them and the influence on our media that is still seen today. The kingdom of the Dahomey was founded around the 1600s in present-day Benin, West Africa. The third king of the Dahomey tribe, King Agojie, was responsible for the creation of the Gebeto. The Gebeto were all women elephant hunters, the earliest examples of what will soon become the Agojie warriors. Though actual signs of the women warriors we know as the Agojie would only start appearing around 1729, when King Agojie declared war against the Oyo Empire. The Agojie warriors were described as large, ruthless women. A signature of the Agojie warriors was the decapitation of their victims and keeping their heads as trophies. They fought barefoot with clubs or curved knives and machetes. They were known for fighting with their bare bodies, like using their long fingernails to strangle. But the Agojie also used muskets from the Europeans. Their clothing was indigo, and they wore what resembled a kilt decorated with the shells of cowries. When they were elephant hunters, they wore antelope horns on their heads. Their hair was short, shaved to their heads. The training would include attacking forts to replicate fighting in slave raids and running through thorns. They would decapitate prisoners for show in their kingdoms, showing off their strength and power. The Agojie were also called Mino, which means our mothers, but the Agojie were forbidden to ever have children. Dancing was an important part of their exercises, and a way for the Agojie to please their king. They would hold their weapons while dancing and singing about their victories and war life. On their clothes there would be rattles and bells that made music while they danced. The kings had three classes of wives. The first class were the youngest and most beautiful. The second class were those who mothered the king's children, were too old or had illness, and the third were those who served him but did not pleasure him. The Agojie warriors were among the third class, and all of them being considered one of his wives. The king was one of the only men to be allowed to look at the Agojie and enter their sacred palace, where no other men were allowed. The movie Woman King actually shows both of the aspects with slight changes. Instead of depicting all of the Agojie as the king's wives, only Naniska, the leader of the warriors, was considered to be a wife. The rule of no men in the Agojie's palace still applied in the movie, but it was never shown whether the king was allowed in or not. In a 1726 letter by King Agojie, he mentioned the Agojie were armed with his weapons while around him. This led to the belief that the warriors served as bodyguards for the king. It was said that the chaos would break out among the tribe whenever a king died and there was no rule. Fights would break out until a new king was dethroned. The Agojie stability relied on the rule of their king. The Agojie were reported participating in many slave raids, selling captured prisoners to the slave trade. They would receive more advanced weaponry, cloth, and alcohol from Europe in exchange. The Dahomey tribe used the slave trade as a monopoly, fighting for control of the trade against other African kingdoms such as Alada and Shwada. The slave trade greatly expanded the Dahomey kingdoms during the 1800s, the Agojie having 1,000 to 6,000 warriors. Women prisoners who were captured from slave raids that were not sold would actually be recruited to the Agojie. The character Ode from the Woman King was an example of one of these warriors. Being from another tribe that the Agojie fought at the beginning of the movie, other prisoners from slave raids would be used to serve in farms and the production of palm oil. Actually, in the 1800s, Dahomey started to favor palm oil trades over slaves. After the Berlin Conference of 1884, King Bahonzin declared war with the French in 1892, starting the Franco-Dahomey War. The Agojie were strong and fought the French military with hand-to-hand combat. Sadly, the French military greatly overpowered them, and the Dahomey tribe was defeated swiftly in 1894. French Dahomey was created, King Bahonzin was banished to the Caribbeans, and King Agojie Agbo was chosen by the French in 1894, where he would rule till 1900. The Agojie were disbanded. The warriors found trouble engaging in non-military life. Some ex-Agojie women would disguise themselves as close wives to King Agojie Agbo to still protect him. The most ex-warriors would spend their lives spinning cotton and working in the yards. There were rumors that ex-warriors would still participate in their training, even if never fighting again. It was assumed that most of the Agojie warriors died out in the 1940s, before Dahomey gained independence from the French and became the Republic of Dahomey in the 1960s. A Beninese historian reported they had interviewed a woman from the tribe named Nawi in 1978. Nawi was assumed to be the last of the Agojie warriors. She recounted events from fighting against the French, and she died the next year over the age of 100.